The upcoming Thor Love and Thunder project is set to drastically expand the pantheon of the known gods that Marvel currently has to offer. After the destruction of Asgard and the debut of the Egyptian gods in Moon Knight, seeing other rosters of Olympian gods from Greek mythology making their debut will be a welcome addition to the Marvel universe. While we haven't seen many Greek gods as of yet in Marvel, the one confirmed inclusion that we've seen in the flesh is none other than Zeus, the patriarch of the Greek domain. Played by Russell Crowe, this iteration of Zeus is based on his namesake from both Greek mythology as well as his comic book counterpart from the Marvel comics, and is the ruler of Mount Olympus. As one of the most powerful modern Greek gods to date, we are left to wonder how he compares to the likes of Thor and even the Allfather Odin himself from Norse culture as well as in the Marvel comics. As today we hope to answer the question in the Marvel universe, who is more powerful, Zeus, god of the Greeks, or Odin, the Allfather? Well, stick with us today, watchers of the Marvel multiverse, and let's assess Zeus's power as it compares to the likes of Thor and Odin, and as it pertains to the MCU and Marvel comics. And hopefully by the end of this video, you can have a better idea just how powerful Zeus is in direct comparison to the other god, Odin. It's important to note going into this, however, that comics power scaling is notoriously finicky, and it can sometimes be hard to pin down exactly where characters fall in relation to one another. This all boils back to one of Stan Lee's oldest principles, that the winner is determined by the writer. Anytime Lee was asked who would win in a hypothetical fight, he would always answer that it depends on the writer and the story being told, and not only does this apply to the MCU as well, but also to the decades of comic lore that we'll be diving into. However, we do believe that we can give you a clear answer. What it does mean though is that after decades there are bound to be some inconsistencies, so please keep that in mind. Let's begin with the latest newcomer to the MCU, Zeus himself. As an incredibly powerful representative of the Greek gods, Zeus has the augmented durability and physical power that surpasses any mortal being, even the likes of someone as powerful as the Hulk, as well as control over the sky, weather, and various cosmic abilities as well. In the arc Chaos number 3, Zeus was seen staggering Galactus himself, the World Eater, with a single punch, and being able to contend with the World Devourer almost single-handedly, which is a prospect that oftentimes requires many, if not all of Earth's mightiest heroes to unite against. He has also been shown to utterly eviscerate the Hulk before, shattering the Hulk's ribcage and causing his lungs to collapse in the Incredible Hulk number 621. In the MCU, Savage Hulk and early Thor have been shown to be relatively even in terms of power scaling, with pre-awakened Thor going toe-to-toe with the Hulk aboard the helicarrier in the first Avengers film, and trading with him blow for blow. Here, there wasn't a clear contender for who was more powerful, but since this battle, Thor has awakened the fullest extent of his true power. He even made the Grandmaster believe that he outclassed the Hulk during the Ragnarok gladiatorial arena, causing the Grandmaster to rig the fight in the Hulk's favor. Past this, and since acquiring Stormbreaker, Thor has become far more powerful and is likely at or near the peak of his physical potential. Obviously though, the angrier the Hulk gets, the more powerful he gets with no limits to his anger. We're simply talking about the Hulk in these previous engagements and exactly how angry he was at the time. If this iteration of Thor were to take on the same version of the Hulk from the first Avengers outing though, then Thor likely would not only be able to contend with the Green Goliath, but overpower him given how close they were before. However, when Thor and Zeus have come to blows in the comics, they have been shown to be relatively even on numerous occasions. In Thor Annual number 8, Thor and Zeus battled each other for several months on end without any break or a clear winner until the end of the fight. Though Zeus did eventually reign supreme over Thor, it was not an easy fight, and Thor was able to hold his ground for an incredibly oppressive duration of time against the Greek god. While a god's perception of time is not the same as that of a human, this showcases that they were able to trade blow for blow relatively evenly, and the general tendency showcases them to be relatively level with one another, despite in the end Zeus winning. It is important to note that Zeus seems to take the victory by a slight margin simply in terms of how often they fought, and how often Zeus has come out on top in comparison to the likes of Thor. While Zeus has won more conflicts than Thor, Thor has shown to be able to contend with him, but again, this depends on the power scaling of the writer's preferences. More times than not though, Zeus does defeat Thor, and the exact circumstances play a key role in determining these ultimate outcomes. Not only are they each incredibly powerful gods in their own right, but their dominion over weather and the domain of the sky means that they largely consist of the same power set. This means that while they trade blow for blow, they are pulling from the same power source, and this creates a general stalemate between the two of them, meaning that they likely would fare better against other opponents. However, now that we've established that Thor and Zeus are similarly scaled in terms of power, where does the Allfather Odin factor into all of this? While many instances of heroes battling one another rests on writer interpretation, there are very few times when Thor in the comics has ever been shown to combat Odin and win, especially in terms of the Marvel Universe. Odin, powered by the Odin Force, has remained the king of Asgard for centuries, and he has both the power and the wisdom to back this up. Since Asgardians mature and grow in power as they age, and Odin was powered by the Odin Force, there is very little standing in his way of challenging his rule. It is believed that Thanos even delayed his pursuit of the Infinity Stones because of his massive respect and fear for the likes of Odin, believing that if anyone in the cosmos were going to stop him, it would be Odin. Odin was able to overpower and imprison Hela, who outclassed Thor for the entirety of Ragnarok, and he has only grown in power since. While this seems to imply that he would dominate Zeus in a physical altercation, there is one more intriguing detail to consider within the confines of the MCU. The iterations of Thor that Zeus has fought in the comics much more closely resemble the pre-awakened Thor from the early Avengers era. When Thor was introduced into the MCU, he was modeled on this comic book counterpart more closely than the modern age of the MCU. As time progressed, however, and Thor was shown to be a less than captivating character, he needed a revamp and rejuvenation of his image. This directly led to his overhaul in Thor Ragnarok, which in the end ultimately resulted in augmenting his power. The writers rewrote parts of Thor's characters to become more appealing and overall make him into a much more interesting franchise. This involved upping his power astronomically. While some iterations of his comic counterparts took notes from this in recent memory, the battles that we are referencing between Thor and Zeus all largely take place before this awakening of the Odin Force within Thor. Quite simply put, the iteration that Zeus fought is not the same version of Thor that we see in the Marvel Universe now. Thor has now inherited the Odin Force, which already augments his incredible power. But with Stormbreaker by his side as well, his power scaling is even more drastically enhanced. Odin himself even claims that Thor is stronger than him, and this is before obtaining Stormbreaker, which we know actively enhances Thor's abilities, unlike Mjolnir, who simply challenged them. Therefore, if Zeus is evenly matched with a pre-awakened Thor based on his comic book tenure, then it stands to reason that post-Ragnarok Thor can outclass this iteration of Zeus if he is consistent with his comic book counterpart. So while Odin is likely able to beat Zeus given everything we've seen so far, it is possible that Thor has actually surpassed both of them in power and might actually be the strongest known god to date in the MCU. Of course though, this is simply speculation, and I don't want to hastily put Thor with Stormbreaker ahead of the power of Odin. It's simply something to think about for the time being. However, this would track with the perspective plot of the film, as we see Valkyrie battling Gore the God Butcher with what appears to be Zeus's lightning bolts, and we also see Mighty Thor taking on legions of Greek soldiers in combat. This seems to imply that Thor and his team will come into conflict with Zeus, and seeing how Valkyrie apparently has a trophy from the God King, it stands to reason that Zeus may fall in battle, be it against Gore, Thor, or someone else. Or the lightning bolt could actually just be a gift, as although sometimes in the comic books the relationship between the Norse and Greek gods can be hasty and a little bit rocky, they have also shown to be major allies of one another in the past. If Zeus is defeated by Gore though, then it could serve to establish the power dynamic while still allowing Thor to inevitably come out on top against Gore at the end of the film. But anyway, my friends, what did you think of this assessment? Who do you think is the most powerful of these three? And who do you think is the most powerful MCU god to date? As always, watchers, thank you guys so much for watching the channel. Hit that subscribe button to assemble and join our team, and I hope you have a great day.